Hello, my AP 2D Art and Design students. For class today, I have decided to record the lecture to get you comfortable with independent learning. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome. We're going to move into a new assignment these next couple of days, and we're going to be exploring shapes, and we're going to be exploring another form of composition. So I'm excited about this lesson. I really like it, and I hope that you have fun with it. Let's begin. Now, I do want to point out that starting October 1st all the way to June, we will be moving from Zoom to Teams. So on October 1st and on, do not come to Zoom. We will be in Teams. You will simply come into Teams and you will go into your channel of your AP channel, and you'll just press join. Okay. Um, all sessions will be live in Teams, and like I expressed, you will just press join. And the cool thing about it is you don't have to worry about no meeting IDs, no passwords. You just have to go into your Teams. Now, prior to October 1st, please make sure that you download Teams onto your portal before October 1st. I put an instructional video in the Teams post to show you how to download Teams into your onto your desktop. Make sure you do that, because if you use the web-based one in your student portal, you may not have all the features. So let's recap. This last week or two, you guys were working on the line elements, and you guys did line photography where you had to express certain emotions. Then you also this week and last week was working on painting with light. Okay. So with that, we're going to move forward. Now, majority of you guys don't have a Photoshop background. So if you don't have that Photoshop background and you don't have an industry certification already, you have a Learn Key to-do list. Now, this was placed in Teams, and this is due by October 8th. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to create a Geometrics account, and you can start by clicking on this link, and you just basically follow the instructions. It's a step-by-step guide. I'm going to ask that you make your username your student ID, and your password your student ID, and your first initial and last initial. Okay, just in case if you forget, I can always say, hey, I told you to make it your student ID, and your password should be your student ID, first initial, last initial. Then you're going to download the geometric software onto your desktop, laptop, whatever device you have. From there, when you sign in, it's going to ask you for an access code. This is the access code that you're going to use to access the Learn Key lessons. Now, before you start the lessons, I want you to complete this interactive guide. It's going to show you how to maneuver within the Learn Key and the Geometrics platform. Now, what's due before October 8th? You're going to have to complete session 1 of Photoshop CC 2018, working in the design industry, okay? So you're going to have to do the preset. Oh, you're going to have to get 100% on everything except the pretest. The pretest, you won't need to get 100% because you may not know the answers. You just take it and get whatever score you get, and you're fine. I'm going to be looking for 100% on all of lesson 1 items and all of lesson 2 items. And the Photoshop CC session 1 post assessment. So within session 1, you have 2 lessons and a post assessment and a pretest. Make sure this is done by October 8th in order to get your grade. Okay. Each one of these, the lesson 1, lesson 2, and the post assessment will be worth a grade. All right. So if you have any questions about this, just let me know. And again, this is in your, I sent it via Blooms, and I'll also put it in the Teams post. Now, I want you to take a moment, and once I finish giving these instructions, I want you to pause this video and do exactly what I'm telling you to do. So I want you to go to Teams, and within the post, you're going to see a link to click on, and I want you to click on that link, and I want you to input the code that you see in your Teams, the join code. Every student needs to do that now. Please pause the video and go and join the College Board AP 2D Art and Design course now. So thank you for joining, and we're going to go through that AP course. It gives you a whole bunch of resources, and we'll go through all of that next class. But right now, I want to go ahead and get started talking about shape element, okay? We talked about previously the line element, but now we're going to focus on shape element. And shape elements basically is a way that a photographer communicates with their images. All right. So with the shape element, with the shape element, what you can do is you can communicate an image or an idea or a tone or even a command. Okay, so take a look at these three pictures. Some shapes within a photo gives instructions. For instance, on your smartphone, on your computer, if you see these shapes, you know that this is a male. If you see this shape, you know that this is going to play something. If you see this shape, you know that this is music. And it gives instructions. You know exactly what to do when you see these shapes. Now, what about if you see a hanging flag in someone's yard? That is a symbol. That shape communicates a symbolic figure or item. What about this sign? This is not an American sign, but let's say we went to this country and we saw this sign. The shapes can clearly tell you what to do, and you can understand exactly what it is you need to understand. Within this sign, it clearly shows you where the man will go to the bathroom or where the woman will go to the bathroom. Okay, let's dig a little deeper into shapes. So when I say that shapes allow you to communicate and identify, it basically shapes allows you to communicate and identify body elements without works and shapes from previous knowledge and understanding. So for instance, look at this picture. Off the back, you know that this shape is a shape of a person. And when you look at this without even saying anything, you know from previous knowledge that they are playing basketball. You can tell because of the rim, the ball, and the shapes of the individuals. Okay, let's look at some more examples. So, how can you use shapes as your advantage in photography? Well, shapes allows you to basically um, highlight key things and to make your images more interesting for College Board. The it, the key to understanding what College Board is looking for when you're talking about shapes for highlighting or drawing out an image is using contrast. Okay, contrast is the idea of making your shape to strike, like basically making your shape strikingly different than the background. Okay, so let's look at some examples. All right. So the best way to find contrast is to look at the direction of the light in your image. All right. So in this image, you can see that this is a backlit image, and backlit means that the light is coming from behind. And when this happened, there is no light in front of the shape, and that is called a silhouette. A silhouette, it looks, whenever you take a silhouette image, whatever the focal point or the shape is, it is completely black and you have the light in the back. Okay, there is contrast here because it is you have the stark black figures, which is the highlight of the image compared to the colorful and lit up background, the sky. Okay, so this is very important when it comes to what you're going to be doing. Now, you will have to show contrast in at least 2 images within your submission. So let's look at some other differences. So, okay, more backlit shape and silhouette examples. in this example here, you see where the camera was positioned behind that person with the lights. And when you do this, you're able to get a silhouette effect. So you got to position the light behind the person. That light wraps around the edge. If you see here, it wraps around the edge of highlighting the shape of that face. Now remember, shape communicates. And in the water image, here this shape tells you that there is a friendship, there is a bond of some sort, and you see it here. Okay. One more shape with contrast example is front light. So in here, notice how in the image the light is coming from the front and you have the dark background. This is still highlighted, but it's known as front lit. Okay, so make sure you know the difference between the lighting coming from the back of the shape in the image and the lighting coming from the front of the shape in the image. The direction of the light is not the only way to show contrast. Okay, so you can show contrast with like neon colors and clothes. In this image here, the neon colors of the clothes contrast with the blue sky and also the green grass. And that highlights her physical shape. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Can you tell me what is being highlighted in this image? Can you guess? So, very good. So, the coffee mug is the shape being highlighted. And this is but not by light. This is not an example of shape contrast by light, as you saw with the backlight and the front light. This is a shape contrast by color. The color of the coffee beans and in the background, it's what makes the white cup stand out. When you do shape contrast by color, you have to put light on top of dark or dark on top of light. You can't do light on top of light or dark on top of dark. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, let me ask you this. What contrast do you see in this example and this example? Think about it. What is being communicated here and here? I'll give you a second to think about it. So in this image, they are using shape by color, and they're also using the movement of what the photographer did was have the couple jump up in the sky, and because of the colors that they had on versus the background, this is a shape by contrast. Sorry, shape by contrast with color. Again here, shape by contrast with texture. Okay, so the contrast is the texture of the background. And here you can have shape by light, but which shape by light is this backlight or front light? If you said front light, very good, because with backlight, the image typically comes out looking like a silhouette and black. And you also have this form of a blur texture in the back. So this can be shape by contrast with texture. Very good. Now let's talk about composition. Through the elements of design, though the elements of design gives us a good content to capture, we place those elements and subjects within, where you place them is very much important as of how you place them. Okay. Now, a couple weeks ago, you guys did the line photography using filling in the frame techniques. Right now, we're going to focus on rule of thirds. Okay. Oh, and by the way, composition means the act of where you decide to place your elements within a frame. So as I said, last week we focused on filling the frame. Now we're going to focus on rule of thirds. So rule of thirds is very important because it's on the Photoshop certification test, but you also have to apply it in your verbiage when you are discussing an image for College Board. Now, the rule of thirds is a simple technique where designers divide their designs up into 3 rows and 3 columns. So rows go left to right, 1, 2, 3, and columns go up and down, 1, 2, 3. So you have 9 equal areas, okay? And at the points where the vertical and the horizontal lines meet is where your focal points should be. So if your focal point is, you see how the lady is here, her focal point is here, and her other focal point is there. So when you're doing your images, you want to make sure that you are lining up. If you're doing an intersection of some sort, you want to make sure either you fill the frame or you're meeting your subjects, your actual picture, whoever is your focal point in the picture, it aligns with an intersection, like in this example, okay? By placing the focal point at each line intersection, the design is made striking and effective. And if you can pull this off in your images, I guarantee you, you will pass the College Board examination. Now, the human eye typically doesn't like to see objects dead in the center. Okay, so get out of that element of taking your pictures and putting it in the center because that's not what they're looking for when they grade your stuff. The human eye actually likes to see subjects off to the right or to the left or filling out one section. So be creative. When you're doing the rule of third activity, try putting your focal point in your object over here, your subject over here, or you could fill 3 at a time, or you could fill a middle one, but don't try to just put it right here in the middle. Maybe put it over here or put it in the focal point there. Try to be creative and unique. For College Board, if your images use rule of thirds, make sure to try this technique of maybe even filling 2/3 or 1/3 or left or right filling, okay? Now, here is another rule of third example that I want to discuss with you. In this, if you can imagine those lines, the sky is in the top row of the thirds. The bottom and the ocean is in the bottom 2/3. And guess what? This little line that you see right here, that is the line that separates the top third versus the bottom 2/3. So this is an example of a rule of third image. Now let's look at some other rule of third image examples. So let me ask you, which part of the rule of thirds does the flower lay? What do you think? That's the rule of thirds image. There's the flower. So the rule of for this image, the flower is placed in the intersection of the third line of the bottom right. Okay? So the third line of the bottom right, if you were writing this in your verbiage, you will put the flower intersects the third line of the bottom right. And the judges will be very impressed with that. All right, let's take a look at this. What part of the thirds is this picture located? So again, this is the rule of thirds. What do you think? Correct. The beats are placed in the intersection at the third line of the bottom. Sorry. The beats are placed at the intersection of the top line of thirds. So the entire line of the thirds of that top line, that's where the beats are placed. So is this starting to make sense for you guys? All right, let's look at another example that encompasses contrast and rule of thirds, because this is what you want to try to accomplish. A principle of design, which is the contrast, and the element of art within the image. So, what do you see here? What do you see about contrast? What do you see? Where is the position of the rule of thirds? And is this a backlit or a frontlit? I'll give you a second. Think about it. So, in this image, you bring out the shape of the flower, by highlighting the blue sky against the yellow flower. So this is the shape that you're highlighting. So that's the contrast. The blue sky versus the yellow flower. This is placed in the intersection of the shape. And because you see dark black here, this is backlit photography. Okay. So again, the goal is to get, for your images this week, you want to be able to get contrast plus know exactly where it's positioned in the rule of thirds, and then whether it is a backlit or frontlit technique. So here we go. As we wrap up this assignment with shapes, I want you to remember shape is a way you can communicate and identify things within an image. Also, to pull out your shape, you have to use contrast. Contrast is key to pulling out of a shape, whether it's by light, color, or texture. You will need to decide upon investigating what you are going to do for this assignment. You must use contrast to draw out that shape. And don't forget about composition. Don't forget about composing within the frames for your subjects, okay? So for the instructions, you're going to go to Teams and you're going to download the Shapes activity sheet. Okay. You're going to take 8 photos. I'm sorry, not in your Shapes activity sheet will be found in your files within Teams. If you go into the AP section, you will see in files, shape activity sheet. On that sheet, it goes through, there are 2 separate activities you have to do. Okay. Activity 1 deals with rule of thirds, and activity 2 deals with what you see on this screen. All right. Within activity 2, you're going to have to take 8 photos that explicitly show the following: shape photography with a backlit. You got to have 2 images like that. Shape photography with a front light, 2 images like that. A silhouette photography, 2 images. Food items, you have to choose 1 food item using a shape color contrast technique, 2 images. In each photo write-up, you need to clearly identify the rule of thirds for each image. And in each photo write-up, you will need to clearly identify the contrast of each and whether you use any other design principle. Now let's take a look at this actual handout that you will be doing. So I'm going to come, and the handout that you're going to be doing is called Shape Activity Sheet. Give me 1 second. Right here. And the directions basically tell you for activity part 1, go outside of your home with your camera, whether it's digital, DSLR, smartphone, whichever you're using, and find a shape that you see can be highlighted either by color contrast light or texture, and take a picture of your subject in the center of your frame. Then reposition your subject to a different area within the rule of thirds and take a picture again. Then compare the 2 images and design, and for yourself, basically decide which image is College Board ready. Do this for 4 different subjects within your community. Okay. So you have, first, this is an example. The contrast and the shape is this leaf against the texture of the background, the tree. Then the picture was taken again where in this image, the leaf was centered in the middle box of the rule of thirds, the center. For this one, this picture is centered on the intersection point of the right upper rule of thirds line. Okay, so you see the difference? For me, I like this one better. It looks better, but it's really up to you and your eye. Here's another example. So this one, it was taking, and it is going straight ahead. It makes you look straight ahead, whereas this one, the shape was moved towards the right. center right of the rule of thirds, and it looks like more of like a diagonal effect. Okay, so with the 4 images that you take, make sure you save them, but in your write-up you describe which one you think looks best and why. Okay, now for activity part 2, before taking any photos, investigate and come up with the ideas on how you will highlight the shape of your subject. When you're doing your investigation, you need to be able to tell, will you use a contrast of light? Will you use a contrast of color? Will you use a contrast of texture? Where will you place your subject within the frame? These are the questions you should be able to answer in your write-up about your image. So again, you're going to take 8 photos that explicitly show the following. And in each write-up, of course, you're going to need to clearly identify the rule of thirds, and you're going to have to identify the contrast, or if you used any other design principle. But honestly, you guys should start here. This is where you should start. In your silhouette photography must watch, these videos will help you better understand how to do this assignment. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave you. If you should have any questions, please let me know. This assignment will be due by October 7th. Any questions? You can send me an email in my Dade Schools or via Bloom or Teams. Good luck and have fun with this.